She married into a wealthy family only to be monitored and tormented by her mother-in-law for 18 years, living daily in agony and despair. She couldn't sleep. Even her name could only be represented by the letter K. Her husband was disowned by the family for marrying her, yet her mother-in-law retained the position of family heir. Her husband Tae-woo fought relentlessly against his mother to protect his wife. He endured his mother's torment of his wife, In-suk. Thus, he prepared to flee abroad with her. In-suk felt deeply sorry. Had her husband not been the conglomerate's heir, they wouldn't have been reduced to this desperate escape. Tae-woo reassured her, saying this was a decision he'd made long ago. Meanwhile, Si-hoon was a prosecutor driven by obsession. 15 years prior, he was an orphan falsely accused of murder. In-suk helped him hire a lawyer to clear his name. Relying on In-suk's secret financial support, he studied hard, earned a law degree, and passed the prosecutor exam. He ultimately brought the orphanage director the true culprit who framed him to justice, becoming a star prosecutor in Korea. When interviewed by reporters, he was asked, as an orphan, how could you afford a high-profile lawyer and pay tuition on time? Did you have a benefactor? In-suk came to the orphanage as a volunteer. The surveillance team offered to assist her inside. She insisted she wouldn't be any help and asked them not to interfere. In-suk entered the orphanage alone. Si-hoon was also there. To thank In-suk for years of care, Si-hoon planned to publicly acknowledge their relationship, but he was unaware of In-suk's circumstances. In-suk rejected his idea and deliberately bid him farewell before leaving. Just then, her husband called, telling her to prepare. He would soon arrive by helicopter to take her away. But before long, her mother-in-law learned of their escape plan. She bribed the immigration agent handling their paperwork and placed Tae-woo under strict surveillance. Just then, Butler Yen rushed in frantically, reporting that Tae-woo had been in an accident. All doctors at the hospital mobilized to save Tae-woo. Ultimately, the doctors declared Tae-woo dead. At that moment, Tae-woo's phone rang. Suki grabbed the phone only to see it was her daughter-in-law calling. Furious, she smashed it to pieces. She didn't allow In-suk to see her son one last time. Instead, she sent her to Tae-woo's research lab. Suki produced the prenuptial agreement and made her read the 7th clause. Party A shall pay Party B alimony under the following conditions. After reading it, Suki informed her that Tae-woo was dead. She was no longer part of the JK family. If you wish to honor the prenuptial agreement, attend the funeral. Si-hoon learned of Tae-woo's death from a friend. He came to the funeral to offer condolences to In-suk, who had secretly supported him all along. But In-suk was nowhere to be found at the funeral. Si-hoon inadvertently discovered that In-suk was unwelcome in the JK family, and had signed an unequal prenuptial agreement. Just then, In-suk slowly walked in. Seeing her husband's portrait, she suddenly fainted. Suki coldly ordered, "Remove this thing." From afar, Si-hoon witnessed In-suk being treated so harshly by her mother-in-law. Enraged, he crushed the cup in his fist. Then, under the pretext of washing his hands, he actually went to search for In-suk. Immediately after, Si-hoon saw with his own eyes In-suk being pressured by her mother-in-law. Later, Suki's lawyer informed In-suk that she would receive 50 billion won, but the price was relinquishing custody of her son. In-suk rejected her mother-in-law's proposal. She told her son that even if she were given the entire JK group, someday, his grandmother would pass away too. After In-suk refused the offer, her mother-in-law plotted to have her committed as mentally ill. Meanwhile, Si-hoon had already begun investigating secretly. Upon learning the truth, Si-hoon requested a case involving JK Group from his friend. Just as he arrived at the company entrance, security guards stopped him. JK Group's youngest daughter, Si-eunmi, happened to pass by and escorted Si-hoon to meet her mother. After reviewing the investigation report, Suki sought to recruit Si-hoon. For In-suk's sake, Si-hoon resigned from his position as a star prosecutor and joined the JK family as their lawyer. In-suk pleaded with him not to involve himself with the JK group because of her. Si-hoon declared with deep emotion, "My time at the juvenile center lasted only a year, but you've been trapped here for 18 years. Now it's my turn to rescue you." Later, Si-hoon discovered In-suk had been under constant surveillance for 18 years. With every action recorded, Butler Yen was responsible for her 24-hour monitoring. Butler Yen revealed Suki's sole concession of freedom was allowing In-suk to volunteer at an orphanage. Si-hoon prepared for the worst. planning to help In-suk file a lawsuit, and asked a friend to find witnesses who volunteered with her. But his friend unexpectedly discovered that In-suk, the wife of a presidential candidate, was volunteering at the same organization as In-suk. He immediately called Si-hoon to report this. At this moment, the presidential candidate backed by JK Group suffered a defeat. This would lead to the entire family facing severe pressure. The only solution was to win over In-suk, the wife of the leading candidate, Baek Hyun-in. Suki promised that whoever completed this task would become the president of the JK Club. A battle for the chaebol heirloom was about to erupt. The eldest daughter-in-law, the third daughter-in-law, and the youngest daughter each deployed their own methods. The third daughter-in-law used her father's connections to rush a gift to In-suk first. She forcefully handed her a 50 billion won lottery ticket. Then she triumphantly informed the eldest daughter-in-law they were too late. Overhearing their conversation, Seonmi sighed in disappointment. Meanwhile, Si-hoon contemplated seeking In-suk's assistance, but In-suk's final psychiatric diagnosis was already prepared. The lawyer informed Si-hoon that Suki acted without consultation. The moment In-suk refused the 50 billion won, her commitment to the asylum was sealed. The diagnosis required signatures within 2 days. Si-hoon drove In-suk away alone. En route, he planned to shake off Butler Yan's pursuit and flee overseas with her, but In-suk refused to leave. Unable to abandon her son, Si-hoon brought her back and declared they'd now execute Plan B. If being a mother is so great, then you must be that strong. After returning, Si-hoon initiated his plan. After deep contemplation, In-suk called Butler Yan. She glanced at her reflection in the mirror and smiled faintly. Then she handed the letter bearing the JK Group seal to Butler Yan. The financial dean found Suki and handed her the whistleblower letter accusing the third daughter-in-law of providing political funds to the presidential candidate's wife. Suki immediately convened a meeting with her children. The primary suspects were now the eldest daughter-in-law and her daughter, but the eldest daughter-in-law denied involvement. Her daughter's face also grew tense. Just then, the 5 billion won lottery ticket was returned. In-suk called. Furious, the third daughter-in-law, Yeonju, was berated the moment she entered. She accused her sister-in-law of plotting against her and demanded an apology. Mi-jeong retorted she wouldn't be as foolish as her, telling her not to do things only lowly people would do. Having been wronged, Yeonju sent her husband to cause a scene at her eldest brother's office. Taeho coldly stated that their mother's favorite, the second brother, was already deceased. The conglomerate would eventually fall into his hands anyway. Why would he do something to sabotage his own banquet? Suki refused to believe her daughter was responsible. She felt it couldn't have been someone within her own family, yet there were no other suspects. No one would suspect In-suk, who was bound hand and foot. Butler Yan told In-suk that in his 20 years as JK's butler, he'd never seen such chaos. In-suk instructed him to prepare defenses. Butler Yan said he'd arranged for someone with grounds to report the incident. Si-hoon approached Seonmi and, using In-suk's name, arranged to meet In-suk. He used Seonmi to indirectly inform In-suk that In-suk was the JK family's second daughter-in-law. Butler Yan entered to announce Seonmi had arrived with In-suk through the main gate. Suki was utterly shocked upon hearing this. The entire JK family came out to greet this distinguished guest. Meanwhile, In-suk silently watched everything unfold from her quarters. In-suk told Suki she hadn't come to see her today, but to meet a senior who was younger than herself. Only then did In-suk shuffle out of her quarters. In-suk spotted In-suk and hurried over. Their bond proved far closer than anyone imagined. In-suk insisted on taking In-suk to her quarters. Suki suggested they discuss matters in the main hall, though she herself slipped away to eavesdrop nearby. In-suk reproached In-suk. Why had she concealed her JK family heritage for 10 years? Had this been a long-planned scheme for today? Seonmi quickly interjected, explaining her sister-in-law disliked showing off. Si-hoon added that no one here knew their true relationship. Before leaving, Seonmi attempted to win In-suk over, but she was politely refused, severing all ties with the JK Group. Suki arrived at In-suk's residence. It turned out In-suk had saved Hyun-suk's life when she collapsed from high blood pressure. Suki asked In-suk to help her daughter Seonmi win Hyun-suk over, but In-suk protested that her mother-in-law was too cruel, not treating her like a human being and trying to label her mentally ill. Suki then threatened In-suk with custody of her grandson. Seonmi tentatively asked Sehun why he helped write that letter, and if he wanted something from her in return. Sehun denied it, but Seonmi looked deeply disappointed. Seonmi agonized over how to persuade In-suk to help her approach Hyun-suk. Sehun advised her to first change her address from K to sister-in-law. Seonmi told her sister-in-law that their mother never made empty promises. If they handled things properly, they would regain custody of the child and she would secure the CEO position. Then she could rescue her sister-in-law from her predicament. Later, In-suk confided in butler Yen that she had no one left to rely on. Even Sehun had entered this household, making the situation increasingly perilous. This was her last gamble. The outcome would decide everything. Braving the snow, In-suk sought an audience with Hyun-suk and revealed her 15 years of supporting Sehun. She also confessed that life within the JK family had robbed her of her humanity. Thanks to In-suk's efforts, JK Group signed a cooperation agreement with the candidate. Suki lifted In-suk's guardianship but maintained surveillance. Seeing defeat, Yeonju knelt to apologize to her sister-in-law. Mijeong warned In-suk that the matriarch would never spare the daughter-in-law who killed her son. Seonmi only pretended closeness because In-suk was temporarily useful. She threatened In-suk, only by siding with her would she be spared, for In-suk would become JK's future ruler. In-suk instructed butler Yen to proceed with the next phase of the leak plan. Butler Yen warned that Sehun would become a liability and must be disposed of. In-suk replied, "You know I can't do that." Mijeong soon paid the price for her words. A video of her daughter Eunyoung's premarital affair was leaked online. Suki ordered every possible measure to intercept it, threatening to shut down the website if necessary. Investigations revealed the uploader was an insider within JK. Thus, a thorough search was launched across the entire family. Through butler Yan's arrangements, it was uncovered that both the previous whistleblower letter and Eunyoung's video were sent by a maid personally cultivated by Mijeong. The reason? Taeho had an affair with the maid. Taeho had violated their divorce agreement, and the maid had long since left Korea. Taeho returned home intending to apologize to his wife. His wife retorted that as the crown prince of JK Group, he should at least have taste in his affairs. "Someone like your brother-in-law who hooks up with celebrities is far more classy than you," she sneered. Taeho was stunned by his wife's reaction. What troubled her more than his infidelity was the fact the other woman was a maid. Mijeong's position as the crown prince was now in jeopardy. His mother-in-law might appoint her own daughter, Seonmi, as president of JK Club. Butler Yen asked In-suk what she planned to do about Seonmi. During her investigation, Seonmi had already discovered the unusual relationship between In-suk and Sehun. Recalling past events, she realized she had been manipulated by them. Learning that In-suk was Sehun's secret supporter enraged Seonmi. Fuming, she prepared to tell her mother everything, but as she reached the door, she paused, because in this family, those deceived bear greater guilt than the deceivers. In-suk also concluded Seonmi wouldn't act rashly for the club presidency just yet. Butler Yen asks what Seonmi will do next. In-suk gives Hyun-suk a list of her own campaign supporters. Hyun-suk expresses deep gratitude to In-suk. In-suk informed Hyun-suk about Seonmi's actions. Just then, Seonmi called demanding a meeting, but Hyun-suk refused. Seonmi then showed up at the door, claiming Hyun-suk had obtained what she wanted from JK Group. She demanded In-suk and Sehun step down, proposing to replace In-suk as Hyun-suk's liaison with JK Group. Hyun-suk countered that she hadn't used the item yet and could return it any time. Hyun-suk's refusal deeply disappointed Seonmi. Ultimately, she swallowed her pride and agreed to conceal the matter for them. Seonmi informed In-suk that her condition for keeping it secret was becoming president of the JK Club. If someone else became president, she would report it immediately. In-suk asked Hyun-suk to serve as a committee member for the JK Club. Hyun-suk asked if this would ensure Seonmi's silence, but In-suk revealed an even more difficult favor she needed. Later, Hyun-suk finalized the contract with the JK Club. Meeting Suki, She requested a discussion about the president's selection. Everyone waited anxiously, yet Suki announced the position would go to her eldest daughter-in-law. Seonmi retorts indignantly that Hyun-suk's conversation with her couldn't possibly have been like that. Suki glares at In-suk and snaps, "Someone like you dares to covet the JK club presidency?" Just then, attorney Jean reports that news about JK has just exploded online. The news reveals that In-suk is Sehun. Hyun-suk publicly announces that In-suk has supported over a dozen orphans, and her charitable deeds in clearing orphan Sehun's name and nurturing him into a star prosecutor. Suki detested nothing more than people scheming behind her back to deceive her. Furious, she flung a glass of water in In-suk's face. Sehun angrily demanded, "Is supporting someone a crime?" Suki confined Sehun and In-suk, confiscating their phones and other communication devices, planning to send them abroad once the dust settled. Seonmi realized she'd been played again. Her mother asked if Seonmi had known about their relationship all along. Seonmi admitted she'd concealed it only to secure the club presidency. Her mother expressed relief that she'd matured, saying mischief could be forgiven, but stupidity was intolerable. Yet Seonmi realized her eldest and third brothers had already isolated her as an enemy within the family. Her mother-in-law warned In-suk that if she refused to leave, Byungjin would be disinherited like her husband and stripped of his shares. He would end up like Sehun, a beggar and an orphan. Then the mother-in-law had Byungjin speak with her. Her proposal left In-suk utterly passive, as if everything had returned to square one. Now the only hope was Sehun. Sehun raged at Suki for attempting to place the lawyer under house arrest. Butler Yen deliberately provoked Sehun. Just then, a female reporter arrived. Sehun seized the chance to snatch her phone. They were each confined in separate secret villas. Using the reporter's phone, Sehun contacted a friend but was discovered by Suki's lawyer. Suki sent attorney Jean to test whether Sehun would abandon In-suk. Attorney Jean offers him 1 billion won to keep quiet. Sehun feigns compromise, claiming today is his birthday and demanding one last meeting with In-suk. Butler Yin informs In-suk that Sehun might be swayed. Disappointed, In-suk says she won't blame him, but Sehun tells In-suk he will keep fighting. If he succeeds, he truly will change his birthday. In-suk is moved to tears by Sehun's words. Sehun exploited a blind spot in the surveillance, making the guards think In-suk was being assaulted. He rushed into the house and escaped the villa in the chaos. After a chase and evasion, Sehun got help from Seonmi to flee. He obtained crucial leverage from Hyun-suk. After arranging everything, he returned to JK Group to negotiate with Suki. Sehun told Suki that the evidence proving she drove In-suk insane was now in his friend's hands. It could be submitted to the relevant authorities at any time. Suki sneered, "Seems In-suk didn't raise you in vain." Sehun demanded Suki release In-suk, because In-suk still had to attend the International Rescue Association event. Hyun-suk intended to pass the position of International Rescue Council chair to In-suk. This was his final gamble. Numerous journalists would attend the event. If In-suk didn't show up, it would raise suspicions. Suki warned Sehun that a dog trampled underfoot would inevitably bite its master. If In-suk caused JK Group to face scandal, could he truly take responsibility for her? Later, the matriarch personally escorted In-suk to the international aid gathering. Yet the true battle among the elite had only just begun. In-suk declared that after her self-imposed seclusion, she would frequently attend public events. Her 15-year journey supporting orphan Sehun's upbringing became a media sensation. Suki then announced she would assume the CEO position, with her daughter serving as her assistant. Suki forbade the family from disparagingly referring to In-suk as K henceforth, yet she confided to her daughter that In-suk was merely a puppet CEO. Once the tax evasion and political funding scandals were exposed, someone needed to take the fall. Both the eldest and third daughters-in-law were deeply resentful. This second daughter-in-law, who had lived worse than a dog for 18 years, had actually become president. The eldest daughter-in-law coldly informed her that whether she was president or group leader, to her, K was still just K. In-suk happily informed her son she'd become group president. Her son pragmatically asked if grandma had given her shares, adding there was no need to work for JK Group for free. Sehun, angered by this, told him he should be congratulating mom instead. On her first day at work, In-suk faced an immediate challenge. Yeonju plastered the walls with photos of In-suk administering medicine to her deceased father-in-law. Mijeong thought she was too naive. Obviously someone had done this. and she refused to get involved. But she was more than happy to watch In-suk's humiliation unfold. This photo was from the unsolved case years ago, and the mother-in-law still harbored deep resentment. The scandal involving In-suk and her late father-in-law reignited public speculation, yet the mother-in-law instructed butler Yen to handle it quietly. Suppressing conflicts of this magnitude would only stir unrest outside. In-suk learned of this while en route but insisted on going to work. Seeing the photos, she fainted from rage. With Si-hoon's encouragement, she still entered the office composedly to take up her post. Si-hoon told In-suk to ignore this incident. When others desperately lunge at you, smilingly dodging is also a method. Si-hoon insisted on not asking about the photos. His trust deeply moved In-suk. Yeonju learned In-suk nearly fainted but saw no follow-up. She felt this approach was too one-off. Her sister-in-law told her In-suk must have developed resilience over time, so Yeonju prepared her second plan. Then Kelly, the most terrifying top VIP of JK Club, returned to the country. This caused panic throughout the entire club. Yeonju arrived with flowers, ostensibly to congratulate her, but really to watch her fail. She openly admitted posting the photos herself and smugly informed In-suk that the second trial had arrived. The observant In-suk accurately assessed Kelly Kim's situation based on her resume and made corresponding arrangements. When Kelly loudly berated the staff, In-suk promptly appeared as an employee to explain the reasoning behind the arrangements. In-suk's astonishing management skills left even Si-hoon deeply impressed. Mi-jeong and Yeonju waited to witness In-suk's downfall, only to see her emerge before Kelly with all issues resolved, appearing low-key yet commanding as the CEO. Only then did Mi-jeong awaken to the realization that In-suk was a formidable woman. She had been preparing her rise all along. Soon after, Eun-young discovered online comments suggesting In-suk resembled her high school classmate named Mary. Mi-jeong secretly launched an investigation. The investigation revealed Mary was an orphan who lived in Itaewon but dropped out of high school. No photos, few friends. She died 18 years ago. But after the investigators left, a heavily made-up old woman muttered to herself, "Mary isn't dead." In-suk visited Si-hoon's birth mother. She was mentally ill. The doctor said she'd been running a fever but had improved these past 2 days. In-suk shared her plans with her. Si-hoon's mother reassured her that she could do it. Mi-jeong believed she was the rightful heir to JK Group. She openly declared war on In-suk. Mi-jeong's arrogance stemmed from the solid backing of her family's Gungsong Group. In-suk initially planned to bide her time, but butler Yen informed her that Mi-jeong was investigating her past identity. Mary. In-suk was alarmed upon hearing this. Butler Yen assured her the identity had been thoroughly erased and would be difficult to uncover. Nevertheless, In-suk resolved to crush her sister-in-law's arrogance. Suki explained to her daughter that the marriage between her eldest son and daughter-in-law was arranged to forge an alliance between JK Group and Gucheng Group. However, the two companies were now rivals in every field. Gucheng Group was also poised to seize the exclusive rights to bring the French luxury brand Dior into the market. Dior had always been Suki's thorn in the side. She planned to entrust this mission to her daughter, and told her she hoped to see Dior enter J department store before her death. Later, In-suk informed her mother-in-law that she might have a solution regarding Dior's entry, so her mother-in-law granted In-suk full authority to join this secret mission. In-suk instructed butler Yen to leak some intelligence to her sister-in-law. Butler Yen worries this could disrupt their plans, but In-suk insists she couldn't care less whether Dior enters. Her only goal is to make her sister-in-law admit defeat. So butler Yen informs Mi-jeong that In-suk and Seonmi are plotting to bring in Dior. Mi-jeong initially intends to stay out of it. But just then, her sister, the president of her family's Gucheng Group, approaches her. Her sister reveals they've already negotiated terms with Dior and are about to sign the contract. Mi-jeong pretended to know nothing. Her sister warned her not to play dumb though married into JK Group. She remained a shareholder in Gyuzong. If she didn't fully support her family, her shares and standing in Gyuzong would be reconsidered. This left Mi-jeong torn, either become a spy or a traitor. In-suk's involvement made her swallow her pride. She hoped her husband would help, but their marriage had already become a facade after his affair with the maid. Her husband told her he was powerless against his mother's actions, so she provoked him by bringing up the group's heir issue. They ended up in another huge argument. Ultimately, she resolved to help her birth family because they were her last resort. Mi-jeong even approached butler Yen, with whom she'd had several affairs, to help eavesdrop on In-suk. But to her shock, Butler Yen had always been on In Suk's side. In Suk deliberately leaked the fact that the son of the Durung Group president suffered from congenital cancer, and claimed this was an extremely confidential matter she had learned from her husband. Mi Jeong overheard this information and immediately told her sister. She and her sister, thinking they were clever, sent gifts to the patient, and told the Durung president it was a Korean custom. But, unexpectedly, they had violated the president's taboo. As the 54th ranked tycoon, he desperately wanted to hide his helplessness over his child's illness. That's why his son's condition remained a secret. Yet they exploited someone else's wound as business intelligence. After much deliberation, the Durung CEO still considered Gungsong Group's reputation. He decided to first hold a private meeting with JK Group Suki aboard the helicopter. But under In Suk's scheming, Suki rejected the Durung CEO's request. In her apology letter, Suki expressed profound grief over losing her son. Her son had died in a helicopter accident, so she refused to fly. Suki's deep love for her son struck a chord with the CEO, earning his profound respect. Thus, JK Group emerged victorious in this battle. Mi Jeong received a call from her family home. Her sister berated her, calling her a spy sent by JK Group. In Suk watched her sister-in-law rush back with a faint smile. The sister-in-law then warned In Suk she would soon pay a heavy price. In Suk countered that the real battle hadn't even begun. She asked if Mi Jeong had secretly eavesdropped on their conversation. Mi Jeong scoffed, implying eavesdropping was commonplace in this family. The next moment, In Suk produced a recording exposing Mi Jeong as a spy sent by her maternal family. Terrified, Mi Jeong immediately knelt on the floor begging for forgiveness. At the shareholders' meeting, Suki formally announced that In Suk's inauguration ceremony as president would be held next week. At this moment, Mi Jeong proposed unconditionally transferring 30% of her shares to In Suk. She offered this condition to get In Suk to keep her secret. But under Suki's relentless questioning, Butler Yen finally revealed their affair. Mi Jeong never imagined Butler Yen, with whom she had a secret affair, would betray her. Butler Yen stated he had always been loyal to her mother-in-law. Had she won, he might have sided with Mi Jeong. But with events reaching this point, he had no choice but to tell the truth to his mother-in-law. Upon learning the truth, Suki realized this was the result of In Suk's years of preparation. It could never have been a coincidence. She marveled at how much more shrewd In Suk was than she had ever imagined. If she were my daughter, I might consider her as an heir. Yet Suki harbored deep reservations about this daughter-in-law she had confined for 18 years. Thus, she prepared to consult Master Min, who had long read her fortune. Unexpectedly, this Master Min was Mi Jeong's final trump card. Master Min was a pawn Mi Jeong and her maternal family had used for years to monitor Suki's movements. Mi Jeong had instructed Master Min to warn her mother-in-law that In Suk would cause trouble in the future. No sooner had she and her sister left than the apprentice informed Master Min someone sought an audience. Master Min saw it was In Suk, who was about to leave. In Suk bluntly stated she knew of his ongoing dealings with Mi Jeong. The shrewd shaman sensed the shifting winds. He spoke highly of In Suk in front of Suki. He even sent word to Mi Jeong that he was preparing to move on to a new chapter. With all problems resolved, In Suk felt a happiness she'd never known before. But as In Suk prepared to leave, she heard someone call her Mary. Seeing this foreign mixed-race boy left In Suk deeply unsettled. She shared this incident with Butler Yen. From a distance, Sihun saw In Suk crying and assumed Butler Yen was still oppressing her. Furious, he was about to confront them when Seonmi pulled him away. At In Suk's inauguration ceremony, Sihun encountered the foreign boy who had the same teddy bear as him. Butler Yen told In Suk that after coming this far, she couldn't give up now. That child would understand her. Mi Jeong, drunk and disorderly at the venue, told Sihun that the person who had supported him since childhood was not an angel but a demon far more terrifying than her own mother-in-law. Taeho tried to pull his wife away, but his mother stopped him. Butler Yen dragged Mi Jeong off as people gossiped. Amid the crowd, In Suk was shocked to spot the boy present. Soon after, the boy left her office clutching a wound. Panicked, In Suk ran downstairs, bumping into Butler Yen. She rushed back to the inauguration, calmly ascended the podium, and delivered her inaugural address. Afterward, Butler Yen informed her the child had vanished. In Suk frantically searched everywhere. Following the ceremony, In Suk told Butler Yen she hadn't done anything this time. Butler Yen expressed his trust in her, since the child was already gone when he arrived at the office, but the child's whereabouts remained unknown. In-suk anxiously asked Butler Yen if he had deliberately hidden the child. Just then, the TV reported a foreign boy found murdered in the park. The boy was 22-year-old Johnny, who lived in the United States. His father had been a U.S. serviceman stationed in Korea but had recently died in a traffic accident. Johnny had visited bars in Itaewon, Korea. One of the pieces of evidence was a teddy bear identical to Sehun's. Sehun felt In-suk had been acting strangely lately and went to check on her. He found In-suk pale and dazed. Butler Yen hurriedly turned off the TV and changed the subject. Sehun, angered by this, confronted Butler Yen, demanding if he was tormenting In-suk again. She's already the CEO, why are you still spying on her? In-suk told Sehun to mind his own business. She wanted to be alone and retreated to her bedroom. Butler Yen asked Sehun if he liked In-suk, even for In-suk's sake. You should give up, he said, because you are her burden. The words clearly stung Sehun, leaving him speechless and unable to retort. Sehun held a teddy bear, his mind drifting to memories. As a teenager, Sehun was an orphan. He stared blankly at the teddy bear. His companions urged him to throw it away. Sehun insisted this wasn't the one his mother left him, but the one In-suk gave him. In-suk had transformed him from a delinquent into a decent person, even clearing his name of murder charges. To him, In-suk was an angel, his only family. In-suk followed Johnny's final route to the church, where Sehun spotted her. She approached the church and gazed at the statue. Sehun caught up to In-suk. In-suk twisted her ankle, and Sehun offered to carry her, but In-suk feared being seen. Sehun asked if something was troubling her. In-suk said she regretted not listening to him and escaping back then. Sehun thought In-suk was testing him, and said that if the day ever came to flee, he'd give her a beautiful ending. On screen, the husband of In-suk's friend won the election. Sehun congratulated In-suk, saying her time had come, but In-suk sadly replied that fate always played tricks on her. She was exhausted and truly wanted to give up. Sehun encouraged her, saying she was now the closest friend to the first lady, no one would dare cross her. Watching their backs from afar, Seonmi felt a pang of unease. Summoning her courage, she confessed her feelings to Sehun. The next morning, In-suk rallied her spirits. Sehun told In-suk he was ready to fall in love. In-suk demanded if that woman was Seonmi. Just then, police arrived en masse demanding surveillance footage. Learning the prosecutor handling the case was his friend Young-ho, Sehun rushed over to offer assistance. But when the assistant produced the evidence, Sehun was utterly stunned. He couldn't comprehend how his Wales bear ended up here. Suki held a secret meeting with her eldest daughter-in-law's family to transfer control of the holding company and strip In-suk of her position. On the surface, they temporarily conceded to the eldest daughter-in-law's demands. In reality, they were allowing her to rise temporarily, redirecting the conflict back onto the two daughters-in-law. Suki had already drafted a will stipulating her daughter Seonmi would inherit the group after her death, but she informed the lawyer that Seonmi's succession came with a condition. Seonmi must relinquish her obsession with Sehun. Regarding where to transfer the holding company, Suki planned to consult Master Min. Unexpectedly, Master Min had already sided with In-suk. Master Min called Butler Yen to inquire about In-suk's stance. Butler Yen relayed this to In-suk. In-suk declared she had been waiting for this day. Kim In-suk planned to have her mother-in-law transfer control to JK Medical, the company she had seized from her son 18 years prior. Then In-suk would find a way to sue her mother-in-law, reclaiming the rightful ownership of JK Medical and thereby controlling the entire conglomerate. Sehun suspected Johnny's murder might be connected to his own origins, so he went to Itaewon to start investigating. But upon arrival, Sehun suddenly felt a sense of déjà vu and an overwhelming craving for a lollipop. He found himself unconsciously heading to a pharmacy. The pharmacy owner mentioned that 20 years ago, this place had indeed been a small convenience store. Sehun located the old man who had previously sold teddy bears. As they discussed the name Wales embroidered on the teddy bear, an old woman suddenly pulled open the door, glanced at Sehun, and muttered to herself. Sehun left after handing the elderly woman his business card. This woman turned out to be In-suk's adoptive mother, Madame Su. 25 years prior, Madame Su and Sehun's parents had both worked in Itaewon serving American military personnel. Madame Su intended to send Mary to an auction at the military club, But Sihoon's father had declined under false pretenses, using the business card. She arrived at JK Club and called Sihoon. She did not reveal In-suk's secret to Sihoon. Instead, she used it to blackmail In-suk into becoming her cash cow. In-suk informed Butler Yen that Sihoon had already heard the name Mary. She urged him to send Madame Su abroad immediately. Butler Yen insisted they should have severed ties with Sihoon long ago. In-suk replied that Sihoon had the right to judge her, but the JK family had no right to judge her life. By this point, Sihoon had learned Mary was Johnny's mother. He prepared to confront Madame Su to uncover Mary's true identity. Butler Yen attempts to escort Madame Su abroad but is intercepted by thugs. Butler Yen orders his men to deal with them. A brawl erupts. Butler Yen drives Madame Su to the airport. Sihoon pursues them but is halted at a red light. Later, Butler Yen informs In-suk that Madame Su has been sent abroad under a different identity, but Sihoon discovers them. Butler Yen reassured In-suk not to worry. Before seeing Madame Su, Sihoon wouldn't suspect their relationship. As Butler Yen stepped outside, Mi-jeong intercepted him. She and Butler Yen had a secret affair, but he betrayed her in the power struggle with In-suk. Mi-jeong harbored deep resentment over this. Butler Yen covered it up, claiming he only felt one-sided pity for In-suk. But if he told her mother-in-law about this, his affair with Mi-jeong would be fully exposed. Before leaving, Butler Yen said he still harbored a shred of affection for her. Mi-jeong was told by her daughter that her father had come out of a hotel with another woman, but she dismissively told her daughter to shut up, because she didn't need to know about her husband's affairs. Mi-jeong never disclosed Butler Yen's affair to her mother-in-law. In-suk declared her sister-in-law would become her ally, for her loathing of her brother-in-law ran deeper than imagined. While her feelings for Butler Yen were genuine, In-suk began scheming to win over the sister-in-law who had always opposed her. She sent photos of her brother-in-law's hotel rendezvous with the female reporter to the Citigroup. Mi-jeong demanded to know what trump card In-suk held to act so brazenly. She wouldn't abandon the JK family just because her husband cheated. In-suk replied that was merely the beginning. If she was curious about what followed, she was welcome to come find her anytime. Then Taeho filed a lawsuit against Gungsong Group for stealing. News of JK Group's washing machine technology theft also reached Gungsong Group. He suspected his wife had leaked technical documents to her family. His sister pointed out this was clearly someone trying to escalate tensions between Gungsong and JK Group. Mi-jeong knew In-suk was behind it and ordered her sister to have people watch Butler Yen. At that moment, Butler Yen was persuading witnesses who could prove JK Medical was forcibly seized by Suki, but all the informed parties refused to come forward under pressure. In-suk instructed Butler Yen to deliberately leak this information to those tailing him. Gonsong Group received intelligence that In-suk was preparing a lawsuit to reclaim JK Medical, backed by substantial evidence. Mi-jeong's sister warned that if In-suk prevailed, her sister would have to reconsider her marriage. The alliance between the JK family and their own had been forged out of necessity for their power. Now, however, their ventures would inevitably clash. Her sister advised Mi-jeong to quickly consolidate Jang's shares and invest them into Gonsong Group. Taeho inquired about the holding company with Butler Yen, but was rebuffed. As he left, Taeho abruptly confronted him about his relationship with his wife. Butler Yen deliberately avoided a direct answer. Taeho smiled, saying he wasn't accusing him. If that person were his wife, he'd welcome it wholeheartedly, because Butler Yen was JK Group's power core and intelligence operative. Standing by his wife's side held no downside. Yet the moment Butler Yen left, Taeho lost control, smashing a cup in frustration. His wife, just home, asked what had happened. Taeho instead ordered her to use Butler Yen to investigate whether his mother had altered her will. Meanwhile, Suki was secretly arranging a testamentary trust. The will designated Seonmi as JK Group's heir. Witnesses feared it could spark a primogeniture dispute. Suki declared that the JK Group she had painstakingly built must not fall into others' hands. The current Goseon Group was far too powerful. Butler Yen swiftly helped In-suk obtain a copy of the will. Suki then publicly announced that JK Group's holding company would be renamed JK Medical. The eldest son, Taeho, would serve as president. When reporters inquired about the heir, Suki evaded the question. This infuriated Mi-jeong. Why wouldn't she just say yes or no? Taehwan was furious too. Since his shares were 3 times less than his elder brother's, Suki sent her third son's family to the U.S. branch office. Then she spoke privately with her second daughter-in-law. In Suk, the triumphant mother-in-law smugly declared there was never any share for her, advising her to stop dreaming. But she didn't know In-suk had already secretly plotted her final showdown. In-suk handed the photocopies to her eldest sister-in-law, declaring she was now the puppet master of the JK family. The mother-in-law had stirred discord among them while shielding her own daughter from the conflict to secure her as heir. They now shared a common fate and a united goal. Thus began the turmoil among the JK family's daughters-in-law. Meanwhile, Si-hoon's investigation uncovered the truth. In-suk was married, yet he lacked the courage to accept it, numbing himself through various means. Despite this, he persisted in his investigation. Si-hoon learned from a prosecutor friend that Mary was connected to a U.S. military death case. However, his friend lacked the authority to access CID classified files. Seonmi helped Si-hoon obtain permission from Hyun-suk, but the documents left Si-hoon utterly stunned. The initial suspect in the case was Hyunjun, Si-hoon's own father. Hyunjun was found comatose and died 4 days later. His wife, Deok-sun, vanished after suffering a mental breakdown. Mary lived in the same house as Hyunjun. After the incident, Mary moved to the U.S. with her husband Wales for 4 years before suddenly disappearing herself. In-suk argued that her husband's decision to relinquish his shares in JK Medical 18 years ago was invalid. Suki flew into a rage, berating Butler Yen for failing to properly monitor her second daughter-in-law. Butler Yen submitted his resignation letter. Suki stormed to In-suk, demanding she name her price. In-suk declared she didn't need the petty money. What she claimed were the shares of JK Medical. But this wouldn't end with merely reclaiming JK Medical. In-suk stated she had already lost something she couldn't afford to lose even at the cost of her life. Ultimately, one of them would fall into the abyss. Suki asked what the purpose of this war was. In-suk declares it's for human dignity. Suki laughs derisively, saying that won't be easy. Meanwhile, Mi-jeong has arrived at her parents' home. She opens her safe, filled with her treasures. Mi-jeong retrieves one of her trump cards against her mother-in-law. Since marrying into the JK family, she's used Butler Yen to eavesdrop on her mother-in-law's movements. This recording proves her mother-in-law seized her second son's assets 18 years ago. But Mi-jeong pointed out that wiretap evidence wouldn't hold up in court. In-suk admitted she never intended to wage war through legal channels. Her plan was to create a media storm. The mother-in-law's misdeeds would be exposed to the entire world. This would deal a fatal blow to JK Group's reputation. Unexpectedly, the mother-in-law had conceived the same strategy. Suki produced surveillance footage of In-suk and Si-hoon's detention to fabricate rumors of an affair between them, claiming they planned to embezzle JK Group. Thus, the two collected false evidence to blackmail their own family. Suki demanded she produce assets that never existed. If this failed, greater retaliation would follow. Suki instructed the lawyer to dismiss Si-hoon as the client, but the lawyer revealed Si-hoon had already submitted his resignation. Si-hoon had learned his mother was the mentally ill patient Deok-sun. He resented hiding his mother's identity from In-suk, and resolved to step back and care for his mother. After meeting Si-hoon for the first time, his mother gradually regained her spirit. Si-hoon asked what kind of person Mary was. His mother told him Mary was an exceptionally kind person. Si-hoon said his father died because of her. How could mom forgive her so easily? His mother replied, "It's not forgiveness, but trust." Meanwhile, Suki's online scandal team had already begun secret preparations. Butler Yen wanted Si-hoon to step forward and explain. Si-hoon told Butler Yen he didn't care about any scandals. What mattered most now was being with his mother. Si-hoon questioned Butler Yen about his unwavering loyalty to In-suk. Butler Yen revealed he had also been present during the U.S. military's Kailash incident. It turned out Butler Yen had been the secretary to the commander of U.S. Forces Korea at the time. Butler Yen had intended to help Mary escape this place, but Mary insisted on finishing high school and becoming a nurse. Before long, however, her adoptive mother sent her to be auctioned at a U.S. military club. A soldier named Wales rescued her from Stephen's grasp. Wales warned her that Stephen was a bad man. He urged Mary to go with him to America, but Mary refused. As Wales departed, Stephen seized Mary. Si-hoon's father was killed by Stephen while trying to save Mary. Butler Yen arrived and knocked Stephen to the ground. But Stephen, enraged, aimed his gun at Butler Yen. Mary acted in desperation to save Butler Yen. Butler Yen said he used his position to classify the incident as a confidential document. But 4 years later, Stephen's brother joined the CID and reopened the investigation. So he took Mary back to Korea, changed her name to In-suk, and got her a job at JK Corporation. Sehun asked Butler Yen if In-suk had killed Johnny. Butler Yen replied that while he had no proof, he believed Mary was innocent. When Butler Yen dispatched men to dismantle Suki's cyber attack team, his operatives were captured by JK's Cho Jin-dong. This threatened to expose Butler Yen's identity. At the critical moment, Sehun intervened to save Butler Yen. In-suk prepared to negotiate with her mother-in-law using the tape recording. The mother-in-law declared there was no room for negotiation in her dictionary. She would only accept surrender. But In-suk insisted her mother-in-law would change her mind once she saw what In-suk had prepared. Sehun intervened once more. Chu Jin-dong warned Sehun that In-suk would soon die. He advised Sehun that siding with her would bring no benefit, but Sehun stated he had brought a witness. Suki laughs, calling them naive for bringing witnesses home. She offers the witness 10 billion won to flee abroad immediately, but the witness's appearance leaves Suki speechless. Mi-jeong has a lifelong habit of eavesdropping. This recording proves Suki embezzled her second son's assets 18 years ago. Suki dismisses it, claiming such recordings are inadmissible in court. Sehun pointed out that Suki was a powerhouse in Korea's legal circles. Winning through the law was impossible. He would fight fire with fire, using Suki's own methods against her. Suki tried to convince them that her eldest son was the universally recognized heir, and that their marriage was contractual akin to a business agreement. But Mi-jeong knew full well that Seonmi was named as the heir in the will. Moreover, her family's Dongseon Group was no longer the small enterprise struggling under JK's shadow. Mi-jeong declared that even if her mother-in-law handed over the entire JK Group now, she wouldn't change her mind, because none of her mother-in-law's previous promises had ever been fulfilled. She now demanded a divorce to comfortably claim what was rightfully hers. At this moment, Mi-jeong's maternal family, the Guchung Group, began making their move. Not only did they preemptively release new washing machine technology, but they also publicly stated that Mi-jeong was seeking a divorce. The astronomical alimony payments would then flow into the Guchung Group. This caused JK Group's stock price to plummet, while Dongseon Group soared. Suki then launched another countermeasure against In-suk. Attorney Jean stated Sehun was connected to the murder of the foreigner Johnny. Johnny had been holding the same teddy bear as Sehun, linking the two. Suki pressured the authorities to arrest Sehun. Butler Yen intercepted this information. In-suk urgently called Sehun, but it was too late. Sehun was arrested. His mother, overwhelmed by the shock, relapsed into mental instability. Suki informed In-suk that the next step would be media exposure. The murder suspect rescued by In-suk 15 years ago is about to become a suspect once more. Headlines like Star Lawyer and Guardian Angel fall together would be quite intriguing. If In-suk persisted with the 15-year-old case, it would be dug up too. Making Sehun a murderer would be child's play for her. This was the consequence of defying her. Her sister-in-law also urged In-suk to abandon Sehun and help her with the prenuptial agreement first. In-suk said that tampering with her prenuptial agreement now would expose Butler Yen. Butler Yen informed In-suk that Sehun faced a high likelihood of indictment. If In-suk prepared to abandon him, he'd be ready to walk away too. But this time, In-suk had resolved not to drag Butler Yen down with her. Suki dragged the orphanage director, the one Sehun knocked out in the first episode, to testify falsely. She identified Johnny's teddy bear as Sehun's. Then she told In-suk Minister Yang was waiting for her call. One phone call would end Sehun. She urged In-suk to decide quickly and hand over the tape. Attorney Jean stated In-suk understood perfectly well that giving up now would be like plunging off a cliff. She wouldn't surrender so easily. Suki remarked that certain foolish people would recklessly sacrifice everything for love. This time, In-suk would surely go all in, just as her mother-in-law had anticipated. In-suk was preparing to stake everything on this one move, but she intended to wage a final, decisive battle against her mother-in-law. In-suk revealed her true identity as Mary. After reading the confession, the mother-in-law trembled. Such a revelation would be a fatal blow to JK Group. Suki had only two paths left: either make In-suk disappear, or surrender and relinquish control of the entire JK Group. Suki sought out First Lady Hyunsuk. Hyunsuk stated that everyone knew Insuk was the angelic figure she herself had publicly endorsed and promoted throughout her election campaign, by any means necessary. This truth must be concealed. Whatever unfolds next, she would pretend not to see. Butler Yen had been exposed for helping Mi-jeong remove the prenuptial agreement. Insuk ordered Butler Yen to leave Korea immediately. She remarked that human fate was truly laughable. A fleeting moment could alter everything completely. Abandoned at 7. The very person who found her ended up sending her to Madame Su, though that person acted out of pity. Had they arrived just minutes later, perhaps she would have lived an ordinary life. If the uncle hadn't appeared when Stephen died, things would certainly be different now. Suki instructed the lawyers to release Si-hoon, preparing to reconcile with the Gungsung group and divorce her eldest daughter-in-law. Taeho was not pleased. He intended to eliminate Butler Yen, who had an affair with his wife. His mother ordered him to shut up and stop talking nonsense. If Insuk was pushed to the brink, scandals about the JK family would pour out endlessly. To continue protecting Insuk, Butler Yen turned back on his way to the airport. Butler Yen told Si-hoon that he and Insuk had been discovered. If anything happened to him, he entrusted Insuk to Si-hoon. No sooner had he spoken than Taeho dispatched men to seize Butler Yen. Taeho sneered. Butler Yen is truly magnificent. Having that kind of relationship with my wife wasn't enough? I hear he's involved with Insuk too? Butler Yen's subordinate called Si-hoon. Butler Yen secretly untied his bonds, claiming he needed to use the restroom, then slipped away unnoticed. The pursuers cornered Butler Yen at a dead end, and a fight erupted. Si-hoon arrived in his car. Butler Yen informed Si-hoon that something had been sent to him. Suki instructed attorney Jean to hire assassins to sabotage the helicopter Insuk was scheduled to board. Unexpectedly, Seonmi witnessed this. Seonmi couldn't accept their actions. Suki lied, promising to follow her daughter's wishes, but the plan proceeded regardless. Mi-jeong and Insuk collaborated to report Taeho for laundering secret funds. After being summoned, Taeho returned to the company. His subordinate informed Taeho that Insuk had helped his sister-in-law file divorce papers. Just then, Mi-jeong called, telling him he must either become a convicted criminal or divorce her. Taeho had no choice but to sign the divorce agreement. Mi-jeong successfully left the JK family and bid farewell to Insuk, but Taeho burned with hatred for Insuk and prepared to take revenge. Taeho orders his men to secretly plant a fake suicide note in Insuk's office. Then he abducts Si-hoon's mother and takes her to the rooftop. Si-hoon receives files sent to him by the late Butler Yen, but he still harbors doubts about Johnny's death. Si-hoon confronts Insuk, demanding to know what truly happened in this room. At that moment, Taeho's men force Si-hoon's mother to call Insuk, ordering her to come alone without Si-hoon knowing. Insuk made excuses about attending an event and headed there alone. Suki received word that Insuk hadn't boarded the helicopter. She ordered attorney Jean to immediately investigate whether Taeho was behind it. Meanwhile, the manager informed Si-hoon that Insuk hadn't gone to the airport. Si-hoon urgently called Insuk. Insuk lied, claiming she was already on the helicopter. Just then, an accomplice called to say his mother had been abducted. Si-hoon sensed something was terribly wrong but couldn't locate them immediately. He called a reporter, hinting something interesting was happening at the Ting family estate. A group of reporters arrived at the estate gates. Si-hoon told them a major announcement would be made today. Insuk went to the rooftop. The men demanded one of them jump off the building. Insuk said she would comply once her sister's safety was confirmed. The men then took Si-hoon's mother away. The lawyer informed Suki of Taeho's actions. Si-hoon then threatened Suki, revealing the journalists outside. He demanded she either release Insuk's confession publicly or face charges of attempted murder against Taeho. If she couldn't do either, there was only one option left: surrender everything. Suki called her eldest son, ordering him to stop at the last moment. Si-hoon successfully rescued Insuk. Later, the lawyer told Suki to concede this round. But it wouldn't end here. They still had prepared material they hadn't used. Suki then went to Insuk's residence and told her she had lost. The two shook hands in reconciliation, but after leaving, the mother-in-law collapsed and never recovered. The media exposed this major news, but the matter still wasn't over. Suki had the lawyer contact the hitman again, planning to end everything on Insuk's return from her inauguration. Meanwhile, Madame Sue had been extradited back to the country by prosecutors. In Suk's secrets were uncovered. They prepared to arrest her during her inauguration ceremony. Sehun rushed ahead to confront In Suk. It turned out Johnny had stabbed himself to force In Suk to acknowledge him as her son. In Suk called for help, but Johnny pushed her away. Johnny forgave her because she had called his name. Thus, he left behind an envelope bearing the word "Long Live" to protect his mother. Johnny endured the pain and walked 30 minutes away from In Suk's inauguration ceremony. Finally, Sehun presented evidence proving Johnny had stabbed himself. In Suk consequently cancelled the inauguration ceremony. Suki's plan failed once again. A week later, In Suk officially began her new position. Sehun also started pursuing his hobby of flying helicopters. In Suk called Sehun to report she would be traveling on business the following week. In Suk urged Sehun to stop acting out and be kinder to Seonmi when he started working at JK Group. But Sehun insisted on accompanying In Suk on the business trip. Seeing his mother's radiant happiness, Sehun instantly understood the meaning behind Johnny's "Long Live" message. Sehun declared he would stick to In Suk like a lollipop from now on. The dying Suki had her lawyer call In Suk to request a final meeting. Sehun escorted In Suk to the helicopter, but after she boarded, Sehun suddenly changed his mind and insisted on accompanying her. Meanwhile, the assassin watched them from afar. Soon, news of their disappearance broke in the media. Suki passed away from cancer. JK Group was taken over by her daughter.